and we'll just take a quick roll call. First of the commissioners, and I'm just going to call out your name. Just say present. Scott Hunter.
Present.
Pasquale Izzo.
Present.
Richard Larico.
Present.
Stephanie Tarleglio. Okay, so we do have a quorum. Do we know if Stephanie's coming in a couple minutes? Should we wait or?
Said she was coming.
Yeah, Stephanie said she was coming.
All right, let's just give her another minute or two.
Palm Beach Fire Department.
Stephanie, are you on?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right.
Hi, Stephanie.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was telling them I'm sitting out here. I'm sitting outside and there was church bells playing and they just stopped. So it would have been really hard for me to go ahead. And so your timing is impeccable.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm sorry. I have such trouble with these computers. I really, hopefully I'll get a new one soon. Hopefully I'll get a new one soon.
Well, hopefully we'll get back to in person, but tonight it was really important that we have a quorum, number one. So I needed to, I'm away. So, and second of all, we want to keep everybody healthy. So.
Yeah, that's good. Good idea.
All right, here we go. So just to finish our roll call, Stephanie Tarleglio.
Here.
Okay, so all commissioners are present. We have a quorum. All else present, Chief Rowland.
Present.
Assistant Chief Pakowitz.
Here.
Association Liaison Nate Case.
Here.
And do we have our fire marshal with us?
We do not. He is out sick.
Yes, please send him our wishes to feel better. All right, Tina?
I'm here.
All right, and who else do we have with us?
That's it.
That is it.
That's everybody.
That's everybody. Okay. All right, moving on to public comments. Do we have any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Liaison comments? Do you have anything for us, Nate?
No, not from here, no.
Okay. I think you're our only liaison, so we will move on from that. We don't have a chairman's report tonight. And a review of the current financial statements.
So everybody should have that in front of them. Going through everything. The one line that we're going to be might be a little short by the end of the year is the building line, which is the first year since moving into the building that we have been tight on that one line. I am working with the finance director, but I think overall, by the time we get to the end of the year, we might have a little left in some other accounts to make up our shortfall. But depending on, we may have to go back and touch contingency based on what we were waiting on parts and stuff to come in with the radiant floor in the apparatus bay and some other fixes in the building. So this year, it's not so much apparatus as it is much as the building. So we've talked about it last month and nothing's really changed.
Yes, so we have heard about that. I think we'll hear just a little bit more about it when we talk about the operating budget, Sean, but it's basically what we've been hearing about for a few months, which are unanticipated building expenses associated with the age of the building. The honeymoon is over, is what we're hearing.
Correct.
All right.
Sean, when you say contingency, is that town-wide contingency or is that specific to the fire department?
No, townwide contingency.
Townwide. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, so just to recap, and Sean mentioned it, but we, basically try to make sure we stay within our own budget. So if we go over a line, we need to take money from another line that might have been under. We try to do that first before we go to contingency. Okay, anything else on the financial statements? First from Chief Rowland.
No, other than that, we're pretty good.
Okay, anybody have any questions on the current financial statement? All right, not hearing any, we can move on to the chief's report. And the first item is to receive your report.
All right, so over the holiday weekend, we had actually quite a few crashes. I'm sure the assistant chief's going to talk about it. We had one serious crash where we had an ejection, in the roughly in the same spot as we had the fatal a month ago, right after Thanksgiving. Don't know why that area all of a sudden is like that, but it could be just a fluke thing. But we've gone through quite a few accidents, and we had a storm, which I'm sure he's going to talk about, which generated quite a few calls, and we were out pretty busy early that morning, and we did quite a few calls for wire downs and trees down and helping clear roads and making things safe. So other than that, apparatus report, we had
Sean, can we stop for a second on that? I just want to say again, after the awful tragedy that we just had, reflecting on the one that we had a year ago, it'll be a year ago, end of January, of a recent Amity grad, another recent Amity grad during COVID, basically leaving a state highway and hitting trees. I really want to be thoughtful about if there's anything that we can do, any kind of public service signage, some kind of respectful but effective message to just try to get people to be more thoughtful. It's not like leaving the highway, in Arizona. Actually, it's one of my kids that mentioned it to me that has been deeply affected by just hearing about these. You leave the roadway, you leave a state roadway where you can go 45 miles an hour and up, and you are within a few feet within a tree with trees. We're not going to change that. But I just wonder if anyone is doing anything statewide. I know that I saw a message that the state police worked with communities on public service messages around the holiday. And I would just like to see us invest some thought and time. And once we have an idea, money into trying to do something to raise public awareness about that danger.
Okay. I know Woodbridge PD has purchased some speed signs around town. I think I saw 2 or 3 of them up. So they are doing every effort to do that. They're just but I can have a talk with the police chief and see if there's anything else we could do to assist in their aid for that.
I'm kind of just not talk about the elephant in the room, but I have no idea what this recent accident was about, or I just think that there's an issue with people driving on our, state roads locally with alcohol. And if there's just some public service message that's been used in other towns in the state or in other places that's respectful, but just kind of gives people a moment to pause, I'd like to just explore that.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone has ideas about that, but maybe we could just do something similar to what we're doing about increasing, thinking of thoughtfully about volunteer incentives, that we could just think about some public service campaign that maybe we could partner with the police department and try to figure out something that we can do.
Public service messages on our website, public TV, those kinds of things might also help. Just awareness of driving in wooded areas, if it's becoming a problem, awareness of the need for caution.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, I think in the last 5 years, we've had a fatality a year on a state highway hitting a tree, right? In the last 5 years?
I'd have to go back and research it, but it sounds probably about right.
I just feel like we're too small a town for that.
All right.
All right, sorry. Okay, apparatus report.
Apparatus report, squad 10 went out. It had an exhaust leak, and it was a pretty big job to fix that exhaust leak, with a turbo. It was just, the truck was out of service probably for a week. I want to say we just got the bill in, it was like $4,000. So it wasn't terrible, but that's about it for apparatus. And the next thing is operating budget for next year. So does everybody have the operating budget, the draft operating budget for next year?
Yes.
Okay, so what we did, if you look at fire chief, fire marshal, assistant fire chief, regular clerical, what we did is, what I've been told is, the town negotiated with the union on 2.5%. This year, 2.5%. Come next year, which is what we're looking at, and then I think it's 2.5% the year after. I'm not 100% sure on that one. So this budget reflects, the budget would reflect regardless a 5% increase on those stipends and salaries. What I'm requesting is we increase it by 5% based on inflation, based on cost of living. And when I go back and look from where we got a last increase, cost of living has gone up almost 14%. So when we're looking at 10% over the last couple of years and moving forward, it's really not, we're not so far off here. And we're actually behind what the cost of living should be. So even though the town is going up 5%, I recommend that we go up an additional 5% this year. So this year would be, this budget year would go up 10%, but it's really going up because based on everything that they negotiated, it would go up 5% regardless. So we're looking for an additional 5% on top of what they're looking to give.
All right, Sean, first, can you just give a little background about what the salaries are? Is there 4 or 5?
There are the fire chief, the fire marshal, the assistant chief, and the clerical. So there's actually 2 stipends, which are me and the assistant chief, and then there's 2 salaries, which are the fire marshal and the and Tina's.
Okay, so can you give us like dollars wise, when you say what the increase is, can you easily translate it to dollars? If not, that's okay. That's my first question. And my second question is, are you saying that the town approved a cost of living increase for our 4 salaries, or you're just trying to get what the town negotiated for the union?
No, the town negotiated that, and we're getting that. So we're looking for an additional 5% on top of what they're giving over a 2-year period. We're looking for an additional 5% right now.
Okay, so this is the operating budget for this year only.
Correct.
So you're looking for so are you getting the 5% that the town negotiated?
You're
over
getting
2 years?
You're getting
No.
over 2 years, yes.
Okay, so those 4 positions are getting a 2.5% raise per year for the next 2 years for the negotiations.
Correct.
And now, so for this year, you're looking for an additional 5% for those 4 positions.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted that to be clear. And can you give us a rough dollar amount of what that is? Because I think that's just important because we're talking about 4 salaries, 2 stipends, which are not full-time, and Joe's is not full-time, right?
Joe is part-time. So mine would be Just gonna do some math here. Roughly $3,100. So it's really, if we go with the town, it would be, I don't know, 1,550. And then we're looking for an additional 1,550 on that. The fire marshal would go from 50, or $5,200 increase. So basically you got to take half of that. So roughly $2,600 more.
2,600 is the 5%, or that's in
That
addition?
26% is 5%.
26 is 5%. So he would already be getting half that.
Right. So we're looking for an additional 2,600 basically.
Okay.
The assistant fire chief is roughly $1,500. So we're looking for an additional $750 on top. That's the 10%. So if you back it off, he's getting $750. We'd be looking for him for another $750. And Tina is roughly $6,000, so it's roughly $3,000 more.
I have a question. I'm
Sure.
just confused. If it's 2.5% a year for 2 years, we go through salary changes every 2 years, not every year?
They
No.
negotiated the contract this year. This is part of the contract negotiations. And the rest of the town employees that aren't in the union get the same as the union members without negotiating anything.
Yes, so
Where is-
Scott, this is just our operating budget for this year.
Yeah.
So we would have the same conversation next year. as
So
to-
if a salary goes from 30,000 to 33 for the chief, that's a 10% increase this year, right?
Right. But it wouldn't be going to a 10% increase this year because the town negotiated increase is 2.5%.
One
Right.
is from last July and one
Last
is.
July, and one's for this July, so it's automatically 5%. So even if we didn't increase anything, even if we opted not to increase above what the town negotiated, it would be 5% regardless. Because
For the upcoming year.
last July, which the fiscal year we're in, and 2.5% come July 1 of this year. So you're 2.5% last year and 2.5% this year.
The
Apply to
contract,
the upcoming year.
the
Yes,
contract was up last July and they
Gotcha.
just finished negotiations. So this 2.5% was for last July and 2.5% for this coming July.
Got it.
Sense?
But the additional 5% that's requested is for this year's operating budget.
Yes.
Correct.
So retroactive back to July.
no.
No.
It would be
No.
2.5% would be retroactive. I believe I haven't got all the particulars, but I believe it's 2.5% as of July 1 of 23 retroactive till July 1 of 24, and then it's 2.5% July 1 of 24 through 25.
So that's based on the union negotiation and agreement.
Absolutely, yes.
The additional request being made tonight for 5% would become effective July 1 of 23,
24.
24. Okay,
So it's this coming July in 6 months.
gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
And
It-
Sean, just also add a layer of complexity. Last year, we made a budget request with an increase. And was it denied? In our operating budget last year?
We didn't do that.
I don't
last year.
believe we did
didn't
that
do
last year, Karen.
We didn't do that last year.
We did that a few years ago.
So last year's operating budget, we kept it flat. That does not sound right to me.
We did because because they were in negotiations. So we couldn't put a number to it because they were in negotiations. So there is no number to it until the union negotiated the number.
I know, but I thought we asked
We
for the
can't-
commission.
No, we
to
didn't.
approve a percentage increase, just like you're asking for now.
What happened last year, which is happening now, if the union approved it, Stephanie, is that what I understand?
They did, and I think the Board of Selectmen approved it also.
Yeah, I think so too. So what happens, Karen, is we didn't put a number in, no department put a number in
Right.
because they were waiting for the union to finish the negotiation, and that would dictate what the cost of living or what they negotiated to have the budget go up for salaries.
So we all put in all the departments, just put in a 0%
That's why the Board of Finance
salary.
contingent, that's why the Board of Finance contingency was high this past year. I
Got
want
it.
to say Board of Finances was like 450,000, 400,000. It was somewhere up in that area. That was to cover this year, once they negotiated it from July 1 of 23 to July 1 or June 30 of 24.
Got it. Okay.
So there was no cost increase on us or on any department at that, in that matter, I believe.
Okay, anyone else have any other questions about that aspect of it?
Are any of these positions in the union?
None.
And no, so this would be in terms of the policy of keeping non-union positions the same as union, this would be a deviation from that policy.
Well, it's not really a deviation. Anybody, any department head could go to the personnel committee and ask for to raise a salary, or I want to say, Stephanie, they just did performance increases also. So that is a possibility. You don't have to go through the union. You don't have to wait for that. We usually do that and wait for the union negotiation, and then we determine if we think it's okay. And usually, most of the time, we do, or we look for an increase.
And this is an unusual year. The 5% is because the union contract wasn't decided until after the contract was over. It was over in July, and they've been negotiating. all
What
this time.
should happen when you look at every department this year in the budget, it should show, and when you look at FY25, the new budget that we're looking at, it should show a 2.5% increase across the board. But what's going to happen is it's going to show a 5% increase across the board, even though the money was it's already tax money and it's already been in the budget. But our budget, and along with everybody else's budget, is going to go up 5%, because there was no 2.5% put in back in July, because that could have been 2%, could have been 3%, could have been 5%. No one knew what that number was going to be. That's why there's going to be a cost increase of 5% come next year across the board.
And then
Minimum.
the following year, it's a 4-year contract, and the following year it'll go back to 2.5%.
Correct.
So there was never any high inflation negotiation in the union contract that reflected the high inflation.
No.
We're not part of that union negotiation,
Mhm.
so I couldn't tell you.
Well,
I
there was
understand.
never any result until now.
We don't, no department head, and we're not in the union. There's no department. We don't really have a say in what the union negotiates here. So
Right, but no
we're
one's
basically
saying that. But
negotiating.
what Scott is saying is the high inflation that resulted from COVID has not been accounted for until now.
Correct. But if you go back to 21 or 2021, and you start looking at inflation, because the union negotiated their last contract before COVID.
Right.
Inflation and cost of living and everything else was not factored into that, and I don't believe it was. I don't believe 2.5% is really a good number right now. That's why we're asking for an additional 5%, to be honest with you.
Okay, does anyone else have additional questions about that?
I don't have a question, but I have maybe a comment.
Sure.
I mean, I just worry, not in absolute terms, like you went through it at 16K for 4 employees. In absolute terms, it's not a lot of dollars, that's for sure. But in terms of how you spin it another way, and not in recognizing the good work that those 4 employees also do, but recognizing it another way in terms of not, and it does address high inflation periods. But should we be doing anything in addition, just to make sure that we've done our due diligence to say that we've benchmarked our salaries? Are they starting low or are they high to start with? I don't know the answer to that, but should we do a little bit more when we submit this, or does that go later? I don't know the process, but should we be doing something more to say, look, everybody else is like already, that's what it costs for a fire marshal. That's what it costs for a fire chief, an assistant fire chief in a town like this. So we benchmark it all. Just because we're a little deviation.
So there's.
I agree. Sean, let me just speak to that for 1 sec. I agree. I think we need a rationale for each of the 4 because that is easy pickings for the finance committee without a rationale. And we have in the past, I think it was before COVID, if I'm remembering correctly, it might have been right in 2021, we asked for an increase for the fire marshal because it was absolutely not competitive with other fire marshals that were doing comparable work. And we did present that. And I don't recall actually, Sean, whether they bought it or they left it or listed it. But I do think we need a narrative and a rationale for doing this. Otherwise, I think it would be easy for them to just say, nope.
Based on, so there's 2 options. We could put this into the budget this year for the 5% increase, right? And it go through its process, and if it gets approved, it gets approved in May at the annual town meeting, or we get this 2.5% increase, and then what we'd have to do is the next process would be you could go to the personnel committee, and then from the personnel committee goes to the board of selectmen. And then if the personnel committee deems it necessary, goes to the board of selectmen deems it necessary or acceptable, they approve it. And then
So you're saying there's a process outside the budget process to do this?
There is. Usually this process is a lot easier. It's not necessarily quicker. It just goes through the budget process. So we talk with the board of selectmen at budget time and explain our rationale. And it's in the budget. The other option is you could go to the personnel committee directly and go that route. So
I don't think anyone is asking for a separate process. I think we should do it in the budget process, unless you think it's more likely to get granted outside the budget process. But I agree that we should have a narrative and a rationale.
I mean, basically the right way to do it is to go through the budget process now. And then if that doesn't work, we always can fall back and go to the personnel committee and make another case on why we believe we should do this.
Okay, so maybe what we could do, everyone agrees, I think that we should present it in the budget process. If not, speak now. But I think that we should present a rationale and the commissioners should have that information. So what is our deadline for the operating budget?
The deadline.
The deadline, we have to submit our budget tomorrow. That's why we had to have the meeting.
We're here.
Yeah, so I think I don't know, does anyone have a thought about how you want to proceed with respect to this?
We could present the budget with what you have, and then maybe in the meantime, we won't be presenting the budgets to the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen until the end of January, beginning of February. In the meantime, maybe you can check with some of the other towns and see what their pays are and be able to use that.
Yeah, I mean, my first concern is I want to make sure the commissioners are comfortable voting for it. Then my second concern is if everyone's comfortable, then we would circulate a narrative and a rationale before it gets presented to the Board of Selectmen. But those are 2 separate questions.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
oh, go ahead.
I would suggest following up on what the chief said, if he could do an analysis or someone on his behalf to show that historically they're not even keeping up with the cost of living, that's a
Yeah.
very valid reason why there should be consideration for the 5% increase.
And that's big.
Aside from that, there may be an additional argument that based on compensation in the surrounding towns
Mhm.
and in the, the county,
Yeah.
other salaries and stipends are higher than ours, and we need to keep up.
Yeah,
Either
so,
one of those arguments are valid in and of themselves.
yeah, so I think Richie's right. I think what you do is we're looking for a cost of living increase that, I mean, it's no secret what cost of living has gone up from 2020 or 2021 to today, and that's what we're looking to get more closer to. If we want to look beyond that, we could also look to what other towns are. I mean, we did that with the fire marshal a few years ago and they shut that down, but the fire marshal was really underpaid compared to what other towns are. So we can actually, so basically, I think what we're looking for now is to bring us up to cost of living or close to it. And then the next argument would be if we wanted to pursue it and go higher based on what other departments and towns are paying for fire marshal or clerical, we could definitely go that route. And we could go to the personnel committee at that point and plead our case. So there's a couple different options you can do. But this
And
is
Chief, you could look into the other towns and see what their compensation is. And
Sure.
we may choose not to even go forward with it because the numbers don't work out, but I think you're going to find support there for the increases you're looking for.
absolutely.
Okay, anyone else have any other thoughts or questions?
So are we saying you would go for the full 10 right now, or go for 5 and say we want to go 5 based on benchmarking or seeking, through personnel, or you want to go for the full 10 now without explanation?
Guys, you're not going for 10% here. You're going for
Right.
5%. The other 5% is already done. You're
Right.
going for
Right.
5%. The budget has to show 10%. The budget's going to
Understood.
show 5% regardless.
Right.
You're going for
Well,
an 5 for cost of living. That's all you're
Right.
But
doing.
it's not 5 for cost of living. It's 2.5 from last year and 2.5 for the next year.
Right,
Right,
but
so it's
That's
not
all it
10%.
is. It's
Look at your-
2.5. No,
when you look at
I
your
don't wanna-
budget, when you look at your budget's going to increase 5% regardless whether you do nothing.
right.
Well, 2.5 last year and 2, it's going to be doubled up this year, but it won't be going forward.
Right.
And the
Right.
Board of Finance will understand that
Absolutely.
2.5 and 2.5, and now we're looking for 5.
Right.
Top
Thank
of
you
the
for
union
that.
contract. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really for this year, it's an additional 5% on top of the 2.5.
Right.
And we did nothing last year. Nothing, you didn't get anything from the town and we didn't do anything additional.
Right. It's a 2.5, it's a 4-year contract, 2.5 each year for the 4 years,
Mhm.
going back to last July. It's a little confusing.
It is a little confusing.
Yeah,
But
again,
then-
I just worry about how it's going to be perceived without an additional discussion. It's how it's going to be perceived amongst all the other employees and departments and commissions. Not that it's not warranted and not, but I think we've got something to do there, because even if it's, something to follow, or something that way, otherwise pull it out of the budget process and pull it into a personnel thing and saying, look, we benchmarked it. We've checked our towns. We also believe that while the union contract didn't recognize high inflationary periods, that's important for our emergency and fire personnel. This is a serious, these are, this is stuff that we got to be very competitive with. And so that's sort of my take, is that if we just throw it in as something that appears abnormal without an explanation, it's going to be less effective for us
Yeah.
recruiting and
So-
retaining these good employees.
So my thought is because of the timing, that we should vote to include it in the budget process, knowing, number one, we are not, we are not spending this money by any means. It's an ask, and the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen are going to go over it with a fine tooth comb. And if they think it's an obnoxious ask, then they will immediately strike it. So, which I don't think it is. So number one, I think we vote on it tonight, given the timing. Number two, to submit it as an ask in the budget process. Number two, we can agree that a rationale will be provided saying, talking about the inflation that has actually happened and comparable salaries that will be provided to the commission for review. And, we can't really discuss it without a meeting, but if we can say, we need a special meeting to discuss it before it gets presented to the Board of Selectmen if the timing is such.
What's the format for where that would go into, Karen?
Well, we send an email. When we
Email.
have it prepared, we would send an email to the board, and I would put my standard disclaimer, do not respond to this email and have an illegal discussion about it. It is for the commissioner's review. And then we have a separate email. Do we want to have a special meeting to discuss it?
Guys,
Wait,
I listen, I think what you need to realize is we put it into the budget. We have to go and sell the entire budget line by line to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance here. This is
Right.
This is what
That's what we're saying. That's exactly what we're saying.
right.
Number one, we're not the final arbiters. It's an ask. Number two, we can circulate a narrative and make sure everyone's comfortable with it before it gets presented.
Are there other items in the budget that we need to talk about?
Yeah, you want to should we keep going?
Unless I think we've exhausted that conversation, unless somebody else has a thought about it. Is everybody comfortable with that? Obviously, you can vote however you want to vote, but is everybody comfortable with that process, or is there anything else you want to discuss about it? Okay, all right, let's move on to other issues in the operating budget.
So once again, the other line is, the engineering work. So there is another for the guys that work on the trucks and fix the trucks. That would be the same as the other conversation that we had.
And how many of them are there?
2.
Okay, and what would the rough dollar amount of that be?
$600.
Okay, all right. Now we're just getting cuckoo. Okay. All right, what else do you have besides that topic?
Okay. So as we go down, medical expense, it's going from 35,640 to 37,778. There's a 6% increase on physicals that we got from Yale Ockel. So everybody's physical is going to be going up 6%. That's something that every firefighter has to do, and driver.
Yeah.
Data processing is going up 8%. That's our cybersecurity. That is core support monthly to run all the IT stuff at the firehouse. So it's going from 24,150 to 26,082. So it's a cost of $2,000 roughly.
And is that a new contract or an escalator in an existing contract?
No, it's just a contract we sign year to year. But what drives that number more is the cybersecurity part of it. And once again, escalation and everything else with everybody's going up, no one's coming down on prices.
Right. Okay, anybody have any questions on that item?
No,
Okay,
No.
next item.
Volunteer incentives are gonna go up. The 5% that was negotiated by the union, it's going up 2.5% last year, and it's going up another 2.5% this year. That's where it's the 5%, like you're seeing it. There is no additional money on top of that.
And those are contributions to a pension or bond?
Pension to a bond, more of a bond program.
Okay,
Dude, can you just tell me, Sean, how that works? Are you talking about like a US savings bond that's been given?
It used to
for-
be a US savings bond, but US savings bond, it changed probably about 10 years ago, 12 years ago when it went paperless. And it was so confusing, so much work for the town. So now basically it goes into almost like some type of annuity or money market account for each individual. So basically we tell the town who is eligible, who meets their minimums, and the town writes a check right now to LPL Financial, and they distribute that money into those people's accounts, and then they can invest it however which way they want. We used to do the US savings bond, but when it went paperless, it got really hard to do, and it was a lot of paperwork to fill out, and the town actually likes this process a lot better, and it's easier.
and the maturity date is what, an age?
The maturity date on the US savings bond, I want to say it was like 7 or 8 years. Now it's instant, but
No,
all
I'm
that,
saying the maturity date on the annuity.
they could do whatever they want with it right away. It's like a money market. It's not tied. There's not a maturity
no
date.
vesting period.
No. And just remember that money, just so if somebody gets a bond or a money market, they get a 1099 on that money. So they get taxed on that money. So it's not like a free and clear abatement. It's not like a free and clear money. They have to get taxed on that.
So a 1099 goes out to the volunteer
You got it.
based on the chief's, based on some rules that you have inside the fire association for longevity, all that sort of stuff.
Service,
Yep.
yeah.
Do you know if it's a 457 plan or not that they contribute to on the annuity?
I think everybody's plan is different. So
Okay. LPL was the name?
yep, LPL Financial.
Okay, thanks.
And how much money is it per year per firefighter roughly?
It all changes. It depends on how many years of service they have. They're capped at 30 years. And
What's the amount for someone that's has
All the-
30 years of service?
it all depends on who's eligible that year. So
What's a range?
Karen, I can't give you a range.
You have to divide the pot.
Yeah, you have to divide the pot based on the number of years that you have. So if like we had Charlie Whiting that we lost this year, he's capped at 30 years. So you take that 30 years back in, but then you have other people that are coming up on 20 years, you got to add 40 years back in. So if more people are eligible, the smaller the pot because you're divvying it up between the amount of years of service.
So you can't give a range for what average
can't
person
give it.
gets every year?
I can't because it changes year to year.
It's what I'm trying to say is it's like under $5,000.
Some of most of
So
them.
there's 50 volunteers, right?
Yep, but not all of them are eligible for it.
Right. So does anyone receive over $5,000?
The people that I don't know where it was last year. I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but I can
Nate,
get.
Nate, I
shaking his
see you
head no.
nodding, Nate. Do you want to jump in here?
I'm one of I have quite a few years of service, and if my memory serves me, it was just a touch over $4,000 last year, and
Okay.
I'm the highest end.
Yeah,
Big.
that's really what I wanted to bring out.
Yes,
So
But
a 2.5% increase per year is, what's that, 400, 200, like between $200 and $300 roughly on that
Yes.
for someone with one of the higher levels of service. Okay.
But
And this
Karen,
may be a conversation for
realize
next.
it it changes year to year depending on the amount of people that you have in the program and the years.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any other comments on or questions about that?
No,
No,
thank
No.
you.
Okay. What else you got?
Okay. Cleaning custodials going from 25,000 to 26,250, a 5% increase. So cost of
That's a
clean,
contract with a
cleaners.
company.
We have a contract with a company, but it gets renewed every year. But what we've been told, it's going to go up a minimum 5%. And when we got this cleaning company a year ago, after William left here, we were able to strike a deal right now. But that deal and they were the cheapest ones by far around. So they're going up minimum 5%. So we're going to try to keep them at that 5%. If we hold it to zero, we're not going to get that cleaning company. We're probably not going to get anybody, and we're going to be in the same boat trying to figure out what we're going to do.
So I just want to say going forward, as these contracts come up and have to be renewed, I would just ask is there a reason why you only do 1-year contracts, or could you do 5-year contracts with set escalators? And what are your thoughts about that?
The cleaning company, we don't usually get into a 5-year contract with a cleaning company. Somebody like a Kone elevator, the elevator company, we entered into a 5-year deal. Certain people we enter into long-term deals, like the copy machine is in, I want to say, a 3-year deal. Copier's a 3-year deal. It doesn't get renewed every year. There's certain things that are on a renewal basis, annual renewal basis, and then there's other things that are multi-year renewal. So something like the cleaning company, if you don't like how they're cleaning, you don't want to enter into a 3 or 5-year deal because you want to hire somebody else or you can get a better rate, you're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking of other municipal agencies that I represent where you enter into a 5-year agreement. You can terminate for any reason and pay them what you owe them. Sometimes companies, for a favorable contract, will set a 5-year agreement with set escalators. That could be to your advantage or not to your advantage, but typically
So-
people raise their prices every year. So if it's possible, just something to think about as we renew.
Sure.
All right, anybody have any questions about that? Can we move on to, is there another item in the operating budget you want to talk about?
Well, do you want to go over all the increases? What do you want to do here?
I think we've all had it to review. You've pointed out the things that you think are hot buttons. If you have any other hot buttons, I think we can talk about it.
Repair maintenance machine is going to go from 85 to 97,000. That's based on, we asked for 97 last year. We got 85. I believe we're going to be okay with the 85 this year. 97, I think, is more going to be where we are next year because the tires have to come off the trucks to get inspected. And usually when we have that, we have a bigger repair year. So I anticipate us being around that number come next year. That's why the cost increase there. The other one that is going up quite a bit is the building line item, which we talked about a little earlier for operating. We're at 33,000 now. That 33,000 was set back in 2009 when we moved into the building to maintain the building. The building now is 14 years old or 16 years old. I'm sorry. And we're having more and more repairs, and I'm thinking we're going to be probably around $60,000 next year. So we're looking at an 84% increase, but that number hasn't changed since 2009. So that's another item that we're going to talk about during budget season this year. Keep going here. Our radio line 54240, that's the public safety radio system. That's for fire, that's for police and public works. That line's going up a little over 3% from 180,000 to 185,475. One of the reasons due is our Motorola contract, which is a multi-year contract, a 6-year contract, which we have one more year after this, and then we have to renegotiate. and our EMAC site on the Seymour site that we have a tower site, which is a multi-year contract, which came up this past year, and there was a cost increase of $102 a month for that site. So with all those cost increases and contract negotiation moving forward, that's why there's an increase. Going on, programs and publicity we have 5,000 now, we're looking for $6,500. It's a 30% jump. Reason being is that's all the fire prevention education stuff. The little red fire hats, the coloring books, the crayons, badges. That's the stuff the fire marshal hands out to the little kids for fire prevention in October and throughout the year. We had some stock left over. That's why we've been able to get away with using 5,000. But once again, the cost increase of the little red fire hats and all that stuff is going up, and we have no more stock left. So to be able to do what we normally do with the fire marshal and fire prevention, we believe we need $6,500, and at that we're going to be tight. The other thing is gear replacement is another going to be a big ticket item that's going to go up. It's going to go from 30,000 to 45,000. The fire gear has a 10-year shelf life. Plus, we have a number of juniors, and we have a number of juniors joining the fire department, and we had an influx in people joining the fire department, which is a really good thing for the town. Fire gear alone, just bunker pants and a jacket is $3,850. Plus, boots are another $400. Helmets another $400. Gloves are another few $100s. So by the time you get done, it's almost $5,000 to outfit somebody in the protective gear that they need. We've been lucky where we were using stuff that we had in the closet. But what's happening is that gear has reached its shelf life, and we can't put new recruits and everybody to go train in it and order gear. We have to order gear now for the current members that maybe their gear is 7 years old, and we have some gear to put in the closet, but we also have people coming in, and we need to fit them with the correct size gear to meet their body and to meet NFPA. Tires, once again, it's out of our control. Tires, we have a 7-year per DOT. We have to change the tires whether they're good or bad, because what DOT states is with all the weight on the truck, 24/7, 365, we have to replace those tires regardless. So next year we have a pretty big order in tires also, as we do this year. In regional water, the hydrants are going to go up 7.5% come July 1. So we're looking from $106,000 to $114,000. Once again, that's to pay to have access to to have water in the hydrant. We own the hydrants, but we need to pay to have access to the water. Once again, that's beyond our control, and we're basically dictated what we can do and what we have to do here. Other than that, that's our budget. So I'll take whatever questions you have or I'll try to answer it.
Thank you, Chief.
No problem. Thank you.
One of the things that struck me in looking at this budget was that the salaries in gross terms increases weren't that contributive to the overall increase in the budget. But what struck me was almost 40% of the budget increase was in things that were really sort of hard to quantify. They were used words like projected and increases due to the age of the building. And I remember my past experience in my prior life. I understand when buildings get older, things go cost, and if you don't keep up with them, then it gets really expensive. And Yale found that to be the case with its dormitories and things like that. And since these are hard to peg, I'm wondering, should you take those 40% increases though, and think of a different concept rather than saying projected increases, older buildings, it's going to cost us more. Is there a process to say, let's establish sort of a building maintenance reserve that we can carry from year to year? And that way we say, you know, we're going to put an extra 50 grand in there. So we're really not going up because that's, you know what, if we do a really good job, we got 50 grand for next, you know, it's a different way of looking at an aging building rather than this process of ask for it and have them cut us down when we go to the finance committee. That's a
Well,
game
listen,
that
we're
it's
not-
not going to benefit us.
We're not looking to cut it down here. The increase is more in the heating system and the HVAC equipment that we're having big issues with. It's not really lighting. Lighting got replaced through the lighting program through UI. This is all the stuff the town knows. But when we go and present Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, we are gonna specify that we do have an aging HVAC equipment that is failing, and based upon what our HVAC people are telling us, we have a couple circulators that we have to replace, and they're not like home circulators where they're a few $100. These are probably $4,000 or $5,000 a piece. There's some other equipment that we have a list of. So when we go and present this, this is what we're presenting.
I hear you. I mean, but with some of the line items, we've explained it by saying that we have inflation. When one of the pushbacks you're going to get is that inflation has been curbed, and that was
We
a
have,
temporary.
we have listen, cyber. So which
Yes,
line
sir.
item which line item do we want to specifically look at that we're talking about inflation?
You did it on line item 5,300 and
Yes.
53,530.
53,530. Yeah.
53100 and 53530.
So
I'm just-
53,100 is a cleaning custodial. So that I really
I'm
don't.
sorry, 53,510.
53,510. So record maintenance machine. So basically the vendors that we use, which have to be EVT certified, are stating that they're going up in their cost on labor costs, and the cost of material is going up. So that is where we're looking at inflation and demand.
So Sean, when
I-
you go present this to the Board of Selectmen, are you going to have more specific information than is in your notes section in this Excel spreadsheet? I think that's Scott's question.
Yeah, we have to go through line. So the lines that we're increasing quite a bit are the lines that we're going to be talking about. The lines that are going up a few $1,000, unless they ask, we're not really talking about. But I thought tonight you guys wanted to see all the increases across the board. That's what.
Yeah, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, and I think what Scott is saying is if you have hope of getting these increases implemented in the budget, and this, I know you do this because I've gone to your budget presentation, you will have more specific information that is included than is included in your notes in this Excel spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
So when you,
I can sit here. Listen, guys. I could sit here and talk to you for 2 hours about
right,
the nut bolt and thing going on here and tell you what everything's going to cost.
right. So when the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance asks you, why do you think there's going to be an increase in repair, maintenance, and machine? At the time of the budget presentation, you're going to be able to say, because the vendor told us their labor charges, charges are going up X amount, and that's the projection based on their labor charges, or just something more specific.
We just talked about this, Karen. I'm a little confused because the cost of labor is going up, the demand's going up, and we're pulling the tires off the vehicles next year for brake inspections. And when we do that, there are usually ends up being higher repairs because we end up having more repairs that we have to do that are unanticipated.
Right. So all that Scott
more
is saying and all that I'm saying is that these numbers were prepared by you and projected by you by looking what actually has to happen next year and your best estimate of what the cost of that is that you know of. And if you get pressed at the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, you're going to be able to point to that information. This is not numbers pulled out of your head
Guys,
or just 3% of inflation applied or anything that general. This budget is probably something I'm guessing you spent hours and hours on trying to figure out what the number is for that year based on the information that you have and obtained in preparation of this budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just say, Chief, on line 53,530, it's an 85% increase. And the reason is equipment's getting older and needs more maintenance. And that's all I was trying to say, is that I recognize that, and it's very important to budget for that maintenance because it needs more and it's getting older. I agree with you 100%, but there may be a way of starting to think about that methodically as a process towards making sure
So
that
I had a
that they-
discussion. I had a discussion with the finance director that we could put it in a capital budget, which we just approved a month ago, and put a line in that. And he believed this was the better way of going instead of doing it in a capital improvement, because we were talking about capital improvement,
Mhm,
what
mhm.
we could do there, but he believed it's more of an operating expense because they're fixes. We're not really going after replacement.
So that's
So
my point.
there's
That's my point.
guidelines between capital and there's guidelines between operating, and what we're doing falls underneath the operating line, which I agree with. It doesn't really necessarily fall under the capital line. Now, fire hose, on the other hand, doesn't get repaired. Fire hose gets replaced. So that falls underneath a capital line, not an operating line. So you're not.
Yeah, I think, in terms of the reserve, I see what you're saying, Scott. I mean, doing tax appeals, that's the way that commercial businesses are judged, is they don't all do it, but to say you should have a repair maintenance reserve that is this percentage of your total budget. So maybe the town doesn't look at it that way. I see what you're saying, Scott. It makes sense if they were just to set a $50,000 reserve. If it doesn't get used one year, you have it the next year. Or if some of it gets used, you have to just bring it back up to 50,000 the next year. That would be a very responsible way to do it. That's how commercial operations should do it and are sort of judged to do it as the best practice. But I don't know how receptive the Board of Finance is going to be to have 50, because they use every penny every year and then some. So I don't know if they're going to want every department to have their separate reserve. That's kind of what the townwide contingency is used for. All right. Any other questions or specific items that we need to discuss? Okay. Hearing none on the operating budget. Let's go on to the activity report.
One other thing just to point out on the operating budget is, if you went to the last page of it, 57470 capital furniture fixtures, or I'm sorry, capital machinery, it went from 18,500 down to 7,500. So we did show a 59% decrease there.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the activity report. Assistant Chief Pokowitz.
All right, so in the month of December, we did 59 calls. It breaks down to 2 fires. We had 1 rescue medical incident, 26 hazardous condition, 4 calls for service, 6 good intent calls, 10 false calls, 10 weather-related calls. In that, we had 9 motor vehicle accidents. I would say of the 9, probably 4 of them were probably pretty serious. We've had several, head-on that had significant impact, significant damage. During the storm that we had last month, we did about 22 calls between 3:30 in the morning and 6:30 in the morning. And we did like a total of 32 that afternoon, throughout the whole day. Going back, cleaning up, we went back out for a couple of wires when UI turned the power back on. We had some trees that were leaning on wires. that caught on fire later in the day. A couple people that came home from work and found trees had come down and taken stuff down that wasn't down where we left. We also had a couple of houses that had trees fall on top of them that we went out and evaluated the structures and referred to the building official on one of them. There was some moderate damage to the house that they were going to have a pretty significant insurance claim because of the rain and the damage and the water getting in, because the tree actually damaged some roof support and put some holes in the roof, so they had water issues on top of it. So it was quite a few calls for the month. It brought us up to a total of 408 for the year. So it was a few more than you saw in your report that you got, just because we had a couple that came in over the weekend that we added in, were able to get into the system. The one fire that we had was a structure fire. The home had a fireplace. Appears an ember or something must have come out of the fireplace, got into the floor, and started a minor fire in the floor. It was contained to that immediate area right in front of the fireplace, but we were there for a while, ripping up the flooring and making sure it didn't extend through the crawl space that was underneath into any other part of the structure.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about the activity report? Thank you very much, Ted. Okay, moving on to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
We do.
Yes, we do. Hang on.
They did get a copy of it.
You guys got a copy of the correspondence?
No,
Okay,
Yeah,
Yes, yes, we did.
I didn't.
okay, does somebody want to read it in?
Let me read it. So. Sorry. Actually, Ted will know about this. Ted, this is from that dispatcher that you helped out in Orange. Remember that?
We had a tree come down in a driveway that she was an orange dispatch. She's an orange dispatcher. She had to get out and go to work, and we had a couple guys. The assistant chief was one of them. Go over there, and we cleared a tree out of her driveway so she can get out and go to work. And she's very thankful. And
She sent out an email, just wanted to reach out to thank the guys that showed up for her today. It was during that awful storm that Ted was talking about, and a tree came down across the driveway. She had some bulging discs in her spine, and physically could not lift the pieces to move them. She could not have done it without Ted and a younger gentleman with a superb mustache. I think that was Jonathan Arpaia. And help get the wire situation handled. And a few more men showed up to help get the tree removed for her. She was on her way to work. She wholeheartedly appreciates what you guys do. And while it was incredibly weird for her to be on the other side of the line, because she's a dispatcher, she was grateful that we showed up again so quickly. So it was just a very nice note from a dispatcher, calling out Ted and some of the other guys for going back out there after they initially went out there to help her out so she could get to work and do the job that for emergency services.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, I would accept a motion to approve the December meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Thank
second
you,
it.
Rich. Thank you, Scott. Any discussion on the December meeting minutes? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, was anybody not here? Let's just see. Stephanie is. Okay, nope, we were all here. Okay. All right, motion passes unanimously. And our next meeting date is February 26th, 2024. Anybody have an issue with that? All right. Anybody have any further business?
Karen, you have to make a motion to approve.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, don't you have
Thank
to
you.
approve the budget?
That's the whole point. Yes. Okay.
Can I
I
ask
will
one quick
accept-
question before we go there? One quick question. Does the fire commission major objectives, general description, accomplishment go with that budget submission?
It does.
One comment that I may just offer was on the major objectives. if there's anything we think we want to embark upon or something like that, rather than sort of some of the completions and continuings from a commission's point of view, I just thought that that might be, since we are, submitting a budget and it is what it is, that, there may be some objectives that we're also trying to do that supports not only the budget process, but some of the, futures for our town that may be, warranted.
Do you have anything specific in mind or?
No, for instance, I understand that it's a budget. So I understand that you don't want to charge a fee necessarily for commercial businesses for fire marshal inspections, but a lot of towns do. And I'm not suggesting we do that, but those kinds of things, I'm new to the fire commission, but are any of those kinds of things to think about ways to offset the budget? For instance, orange charges. I'm not saying we want to, I'm not saying that at all, because, maybe we don't want to burden our own. We have trouble supporting our commercial businesses as it is. We don't want to charge them fire marshal inspection fees. We put it on the residences. But I'm just saying is those kinds of things could go along, and objectives looking at that could go along with a budget submission. Just a comment.
So I would just say, for tonight, I don't think there's anything specific that we need to add to this. It's a general description of the department. It's an adequate description of the department. It's not really a description of any, what's the word I'm looking for? Initiatives that we may undertake as the commission that are within our scope, which is described separately in the town charter. So I don't really think there's anything we need to add to this for the purposes of approving the budget. That is my opinion. And I don't hear anything specific that appears to be missing from the description of the department.
Oh, no, I was talking about major objectives.
Scott, just to go on with charging or whatever, we never were looking to charge businesses. And I know that's not your intention, but about probably 7 or 8 years ago, we had a meeting to possibly start charging for motor vehicle accidents, going after the insurance company for the equipment and the materials used to offset the budget. What came out of that whole discussion was it wasn't enough to offset the budget, where by the time we got it, had to have somebody do the billing and collect it. It wasn't worth doing.
Okay, I'm just going to call for a motion to approve the budget as presented.
I'll make a motion.
We have a second.
A second.
Any further discussion on the budget? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any objections? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Anybody want to second the motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I know this is a lot of work for you all to put together to present this budget. And I appreciate the thoughtful presentation and discussion. And we will definitely follow up with, as we discussed, a narrative and a rationale for the salary asks. And I will circulate that via email to the board and just ask that you not comment, and then we'll have a separate email to just talk about whether we want to schedule a special meeting, okay?
Okay.
All
Happy
right.
New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Nice to see
Thank
you all.
you.
New Year.